Typhoon Nina, also known locally as Typhoon Bibeng, remains one of the most devastating storms in the history of Asia. This catastrophic event took place in early August of 1975 and became notorious not just for its strength, but for the extraordinary loss of life and destruction it caused. Before it made landfall, Typhoon Nina had already gained a reputation as a fierce and unpredictable tropical cyclone in the western Pacific Ocean, showing signs early on that it could become a catastrophic storm. The storm first began as a tropical disturbance off the coast of Guam. Warm sea surface temperatures and favorable atmospheric conditions quickly allowed the system to strengthen, and by the first few days of August, it had developed into a tropical storm. As it moved westward, heading toward the Philippines, Typhoon Nina continued to grow in size and intensity. Meteorologists tracked its progress closely, issuing early warnings to the regions in its path. Despite these warnings, the sheer power of the storm was beyond what most could imagine at the time. By the time Nina reached typhoon status, its wind speeds had accelerated dramatically. Reports later estimated that the winds at the center of the storm exceeded 120 miles per hour. As it barreled closer to the archipelago, the people of the Philippines braced for impact. The storm was moving fast, its wide wind field sweeping across the sea, pushing massive storm surges toward the coastal areas. On August 6, 1975, Typhoon Nina made landfall on Luzon, the largest and most populous island in the Philippines. It slammed into the northern regions with incredible force, bringing torrential rains, powerful gusts, and life-threatening storm surges that overwhelmed entire communities. The rains were so heavy that they caused massive flooding within hours of the storm's arrival. Coastal villages were some of the first to feel the brunt of the storm, with homes, businesses, and crops being swept away by the winds and water. But what made Typhoon Nina especially catastrophic was not just the immediate damage. As it moved inland, it triggered a series of events that would turn this typhoon into one of the most tragic natural disasters in the nation's history. After wreaking havoc in the Philippines, Typhoon Nina continued on its deadly path, leaving widespread devastation in its wake. But the storm was far from over, and its next target was even more populous. After crossing the island of Luzon, Nina weakened slightly as it moved into the South China Sea. However, the warm waters there allowed the storm to quickly regain strength, setting its sights on the southeastern coast of China. What started as a disaster for the Philippines was about to become an international catastrophe impacting millions across Asia. As the storm gained momentum, the people of China were ill-prepared for the scale of destruction that was about to strike. By early August, weather agencies in China had issued warnings for the coastal provinces, urging citizens to brace for severe flooding and landslides. Despite these warnings, the country's infrastructure, especially in rural areas, was not equipped to handle the sheer power of the approaching typhoon. On August 8, Typhoon Nina made landfall in mainland China, striking the Fujian province with full force. The winds, exceeding 120 miles per hour, tore through cities and villages alike. Entire towns were submerged as torrential rains flooded rivers, causing them to overflow and swallow everything in their path. Farmlands were destroyed, homes were flattened, and roads became impassable due to mudslides and debris. What made Nina particularly deadly in China was the failure of several dams, including the infamous collapse of the Banqiao Dam, which led to one of the deadliest dam failures in history. The Banqiao Dam, located in the Henan province, had been built to withstand massive floods, but it was no match for the intensity of Typhoon Nina. As the storm dumped massive amounts of rain over the region, water levels in the dam rose uncontrollably. On the night of August 8, the dam burst, releasing a wave of water that wiped out entire villages downstream. The resulting flood created a cascade of destruction, taking the lives of tens of thousands of people and leaving hundreds of thousands homeless. The failure of the dam was a turning point in the disaster as the floodwaters swept through the countryside, causing widespread chaos and loss of life. But the devastation didn't stop in China. Typhoon Nina's immense power affected other countries in the region as well. Taiwan, which was in the storm's direct path as it moved northward, faced heavy rains and strong winds that caused significant damage to infrastructure and agriculture. Vietnam and Laos also experienced residual effects from the typhoon, with torrential rains flooding rural areas and leaving communities stranded without food or clean water for days. In all, Typhoon Nina was a regional disaster affecting not only the Philippines, but also much of East and Southeast Asia. The scale of the destruction extended far beyond what anyone could have anticipated, with the storm leaving a lasting legacy in every country it touched. As the winds died down and the rain began to taper off, the true extent of Typhoon Nina's devastation became evident. Survivors emerged from the wreckage to find their homes destroyed and their communities in ruins. In the Philippines, the recovery efforts began almost immediately, but the sheer scale of destruction made it an uphill battle. Government agencies, alongside international organizations, mobilized to provide assistance to those affected. However, the challenges were immense, with communication lines down and roads blocked by debris, hampering relief efforts. In the Philippines, the government declared a state of emergency in the hardest-hit areas. Rescue teams were dispatched to remote locations where entire villages had been swept away and many communities were cut off from aid. Local volunteers, often risking their own safety, joined the efforts to locate survivors trapped under the rubble or stranded in isolated areas. Relief centers were set up to provide food, water, and medical assistance, but the resources quickly became strained as more people sought help. The United Nations stepped in, coordinating an international relief effort that brought supplies and aid workers from around the globe. Countries such as Japan, the United States, and Australia sent planes filled with food, medical supplies, and equipment to aid in the recovery. Non-governmental organizations also played a critical role, setting up shelters and providing essential services to those displaced by the storm. As the focus shifted to recovery in the Philippines, the situation in China became a pressing concern. With the Banqiao Dam disaster, the Chinese government faced an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. The immediate priority was to search for survivors and provide medical care to the injured. Rescue teams were deployed to the hardest-hit areas, where entire neighborhoods were submerged. Reports indicated that local hospitals were overwhelmed, struggling to care for the thousands injured in the disaster. In the wake of Typhoon Nina, the Chinese government launched a comprehensive recovery and rebuilding plan. Emergency funds were allocated to help communities recover and rebuild infrastructure. Schools, hospitals, and homes were prioritized for reconstruction, but the task was daunting. The government also faced scrutiny over the failure of the dam, prompting investigations into the quality of construction and maintenance practices that led to such a catastrophic failure. In Taiwan, Vietnam, and Laos, recovery efforts were underway as well. Local governments worked to restore power and clean up debris, but the damage to agriculture was significant, with crops destroyed and livelihoods lost. Farmers faced an uncertain future, and many communities struggled to access clean water and food supplies. In response to the regional crisis, neighboring countries also offered assistance, sharing resources and expertise to aid recovery efforts across borders. The disaster brought attention to the broader issue of climate resilience in the region. Experts and government officials began to discuss the need for better disaster preparedness, improved infrastructure, and more robust emergency response systems to mitigate the impacts of future storms. Typhoon Nina served as a harsh reminder of the vulnerability of coastal and riverine communities to the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, prompting calls for action at both local and international levels. As the weeks turned into months, the survivors of Typhoon Nina slowly began to rebuild their lives amidst the wreckage, united by their shared experience of loss and resilience. The typhoon left an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of those who lived through it, reminding them of the power of nature and the strength of community in the face of adversity. As the dust began to settle from the immediate chaos following Typhoon Nina, the region started to reflect on the lessons learned from this devastating storm. In the Philippines, discussions emerged regarding the need for stronger building codes and infrastructure improvements to withstand future typhoons. The government began collaborating with international engineering firms and disaster management organizations to assess existing structures and develop a comprehensive plan to reinforce vulnerable areas. Education on disaster preparedness became a priority, as communities recognized the importance of being equipped with the knowledge and tools to respond effectively to future emergencies. Schools incorporated disaster response training into their curricula, teaching children and their families how to prepare for severe weather events, identify safe shelters, and create emergency plans. Community workshops were organized, where local leaders shared insights on resilience and recovery, fostering a culture of preparedness. In China, the Banqiao Dam disaster prompted a nationwide reevaluation of dam safety and flood management systems. The government initiated rigorous inspections of all major dams, implementing stricter regulations and maintenance schedules to prevent similar catastrophes. Public discussions around environmental sustainability gained momentum as citizens and officials alike began to understand the need for responsible management of natural resources and the impact of urban development on flood risks. The experience of Typhoon Nina also highlighted the interconnectedness of countries in the region when facing natural disasters. Regional cooperation became a focal point, with leaders from the Philippines, China, Taiwan, and other affected nations meeting to discuss joint initiatives for disaster response and recovery. They explored the establishment of a regional disaster management framework that would facilitate information sharing, resource allocation, and collaborative training exercises. In the wake of the typhoon, the economy of the affected regions took a significant hit. Agriculture suffered tremendously, particularly in the Philippines, where rice and other staple crops were destroyed. Farmers struggled to recover, leading to food shortages and increased prices. Local governments, alongside international aid organizations, implemented programs to provide financial assistance and resources to farmers to help them rebuild their livelihoods. The importance of crop diversification and sustainable agricultural practices became apparent as communities sought to create more resilient farming systems, less vulnerable to extreme weather. The psychological toll of Typhoon Nina also became evident as time passed. Many survivors struggled with the trauma of loss and displacement, and mental health services became a crucial aspect of recovery efforts. Organizations trained mental health professionals to support affected individuals, providing counseling and therapy to help communities heal. The process of recovery was not just physical, but also emotional, as people learned to cope with the lasting impacts of the disaster. As the years went by, the lessons learned from Typhoon Nina shaped policy decisions and community initiatives across the region. The storm served as a wake-up call to governments, organizations, and individuals about the urgent need for disaster preparedness and resilience in the face of a changing climate. Communities became advocates for their own safety, demanding better infrastructure and more robust emergency response systems, fostering a sense of agency and empowerment. In retrospect, Typhoon Nina was a catalyst for change, driving a shift in how the region approached disaster risk management. It underscored the significance of preparedness, community engagement, and international cooperation in building a more resilient future. The memories of the storm remained vivid, a poignant reminder of nature's power and the enduring strength of those who faced its wrath. As the years passed since Typhoon Nina, communities across the affected regions continued to rebuild and reflect on the profound impact of that catastrophic event. The scars left by the typhoon remained etched in the landscape and in the hearts of those who experienced its fury, serving as a constant reminder of the vulnerability faced by populations in disaster-prone areas. Yet, amidst the memories of loss and devastation, stories of resilience and recovery emerged, illustrating the indomitable spirit of those who weathered the storm. In the Philippines, the experience of Typhoon Nina ignited a sense of unity among communities. Neighborhoods that had once been fragmented began to work together, sharing resources, knowledge, and support in ways that had not been seen before. Local organizations, strengthened by the shared experience of loss, formed networks to assist those still struggling to regain stability. Community leaders organized regular meetings to discuss ongoing challenges, ensuring that everyone had a voice in shaping their recovery and future preparedness plans. The government's commitment to improving infrastructure gained momentum, with investments made in roads, bridges, and evacuation centers designed to withstand future storms. Communities began to embrace innovative technologies such as early warning systems and mobile apps to receive real-time updates on severe weather. This integration of technology into disaster management significantly enhanced the region's ability to respond swiftly to warnings and minimize potential loss of life and property. In China, the lessons learned from the Banqiao Dam disaster prompted a national discourse on sustainable development. The emphasis on responsible urban planning and environmental conservation became central to discussions around infrastructure projects. Citizens began to advocate for policies that prioritized the environment, recognizing the delicate balance between development and nature. The government responded with initiatives aimed at restoring natural ecosystems and investing in green infrastructure to mitigate the impacts of future flooding. Throughout the region, the bonds forged in the aftermath of Typhoon Nina contributed to a greater understanding of the importance of international cooperation in disaster management. Countries across Asia began to share knowledge, resources, and best practices, forming partnerships that transcended borders. Joint training exercises and simulation drills were organized to prepare for future natural disasters, fostering a sense of solidarity and shared responsibility among nations. As communities rebuilt, there was a renewed focus on mental health support. Survivors who had endured trauma received the necessary resources to process their experiences and find healing. Mental health professionals worked tirelessly to ensure that individuals felt supported and understood, facilitating community workshops that emphasized the importance of emotional well-being. The collective healing process became a testament to the strength of community bonds as people learned to lean on one another for support. In schools, children who had lived through Typhoon Nina were empowered to become advocates for disaster preparedness. Educational programs incorporated lessons about climate change, environmental stewardship, and safety protocols, ensuring that the next generation would be better equipped to face the challenges posed by natural disasters. Young voices emerge as powerful agents of change, driving conversations about sustainability and resilience within their communities. As Typhoon Nina faded into the past, its legacy continued to shape policies, practices, and mindsets across the region. The storm had been a devastating event, but it also served as a catalyst for transformation, prompting societies to confront their vulnerabilities and take proactive steps toward building a safer, more resilient future. In reflection, Typhoon Nina taught invaluable lessons about the power of community, the importance of preparedness, and the need for collective action in the face of adversity. As people moved forward, they carried with them the memories of those who had been lost, honoring their stories by creating a future that prioritized safety, resilience, and unity. The echoes of Typhoon Nina would forever resonate in the hearts of those who lived through it, reminding them that even in the face of nature's fury, hope and strength could rise anew.